hand, you realize that they aren't really supporting you in the way that you need to be supported. Like they're not pouring into you the way you pour into them. You need all the love and the honesty. So I told her, I was like, you gotta, this is the group. You gotta come because this will be good. So I'm
Yeah,
glad she was able
yeah.
to make it.
Yeah, she had to leave early though, and because we started late, she had to leave early. So, I mean, definitely encourage her to come to the Goddaughters because I know she's like a long time Earth Center person as well, and if she wants to get the details as well, because she got out on the healer side, so she didn't hear the full workshop, but
Okay.
definitely
Hmm.
encourage her to come to Patreon
I will.
because this is going to be our last Sunday on the free workshops, right?
Right. Right.
We're still going to have these. We're
Yes.
still going to
Yes.
have these.
I will let her know for sure.
All right. Okay. All right. So let's get into it. The Alchemist. How was this week for everyone? Did you? Hey! Yes. How was the read? It's an easy read, huh?
Oh, it just takes you away. You just get
Yeah.
transported with him, and then you have the whole moments like you're like, oh, I know that, yeah, like I know that, not in the same way you said it, but in the same way
But
because
I
it's just
know
like,
it.
but I know that. Ooh. And so many times in that, I was like, his journey is literally my journey right now.
Huh.
You
Mm.
know, I'm not going to the pyramids, but I'm going to my own personal pyramid. It's the same thing, and just the thoughts that he's going through, and the things that he's going through, and the people that he's meeting him, telling them the good things and how life can come and get you so off track if you let it.
Boy.
Because life isn't heavy, but we could allow it to be heavy in our hearts. You
Mm.
know, when we
Yeah,
can't see the
depending on how
bigger
we
picture.
perceive.
Yeah, you just,
Right.
and it's all to learn, but in the moment you don't feel like you learning because you're focused on what you think should be the goal right now. When it's just one
Right.
little piece, one step in the journey. So you can easily just be like, listen, y'all, I did not get dressed yesterday. I stayed in my pajamas the whole entire day. I ain't cooked. I cooked something late last night because I was breaking fast and I had to cook because there was nothing made quick. Um, I watched
Mm.
TV. Um, but then some of the shows didn't work with my spirit. So I'm like, I can't watch y'all. Y'all are too much for me right now. I didn't do nothing. And at first I felt bad that I didn't do nothing because I'm always productive. But then I was like, you know what? That's all I got today. That's all I got.
Yeah.
And today
You got
I'm
time
dressed.
to yeah, pour
I
into the
got some
book.
clothes on, y'all, today. I
At
got some
least.
clothes on. But that's how I felt listening to
That's
him.
awesome.
Like there was times where it just seemed like I wanted to hug him. I felt like his heart was so heavy with the fact that he was
Mm.
not going to achieve what he thought he was supposed to achieve in that moment because it wasn't packaged up,
It
you
wasn't
know.
packaged right. Yeah,
Right.
neatly, let's say. It wasn't
Okay.
packaged
And even
neatly.
his love for his little girl, the little girl in the city that he had been loving from a distance, but she
Uh-huh.
don't really know. But maybe she wasn't good for him. Like in the reality, I had like listen, I had to sit there and think to myself because I have a whole somebody who's not good for me in any way, y'all. And I know it.
Oh.
I know it. But he makes
It's
me feel some kind of way. Like I'm drawn to him, but he ain't good. And I had a reading and they were like, well, we can fix that for you. I'm like, no, no, no. I don't want you to fix it. I want you to tell me, should I be with him? Guess what they told me,
mm.
y'all? They just said, that's up to
What?
you. That's up to you. The
How
decision is
much
yours.
trouble you want to go through?
That's it. That's up to you. If you want us to make it so it can be favorable for you to be with him, we can do that. But you being with him, we can't tell you. We can't make the decision. And I wanted somebody to tell me. And my
Yeah,
ancestors were like,
that's a lot
girl,
of times how we are.
but the ancestors were saying, just like in the story, but you got the answer already. You know where you should be going. It don't matter that you have to give up all the sheep right now and let them go.
Okay. You giving away the clues. You giving away the clues. Okay. This is just the intro. Okay. Thank you, Neferista. Yeah, that's how I felt as well when I read. I felt that there was a lot that correlated with our spiritual journeys, and that's what I want to talk about in this session. But before we get into, I just want to hear generally, like from Jennifer or Tiffany, what things stood out. Well, not what things stood out, but like how did you feel reading it? Is there one like major point that really resonated with you?
I'll say a lot of points resonated with me. I didn't realize how it like aligned this book was going to be when it was chosen. Um, Even like the forward or the prologue or whatever. I was like, "Ah, man, this is hitting already. We haven't even started the actual book yet."
I'm
Because
glad you noticed the
in
prologue.
man, because even like, 'cause I don't know if I have shared with everyone, but like I'm writing a book currently, and I'm going through those like self-defeating thoughts, and I haven't even finished writing the book, so I imagine what it'd be like when it's just sitting there and no one's giving like the respect you feel like it deserves, and you have to still stay on your square and be like, no, this is solid, this is good, like I know what this is, and wait for others to see its potential. So that was like, that like really stood out for me. And like that wasn't even the actual like story. And then when he was talking about his decision and being a shepherd and how like and showing how like this was what he chose for specific reasons and this is how it was being perceived by others. I really
Mm.
liked how the father was like, this is what I want you to do, but if this is what you want to do, then here's your inheritance. Do what you need to do to support your dream. That was like really um good to see for me because like like okay, speaking in my background, Caribbean people 9 times out of 10 when you come to the States you're in healthcare fields, whether you want to be in
Mm.
healthcare or not. That's like that's just the occupation that's kind of just chosen for you. So when you do anything outside of that, especially something that's not necessarily looked at like as like a lot of financial gain attached to it, like being an artist or being like a musician or writer or whatever, a lot of times your family is going to ridicule you and bully you into the occupation that they set for you. You don't have that person who's willing to, translate their inheritance so that you can buy your sheep or goats, whatever they were that, he's shepherding. um and so, that was um important to see there because it's like, okay, he had a father that was willing to see his vision come to fruition, but how many of us are living lives that we didn't want it, that we didn't choose for ourselves? How many of us are living lives that
Right.
we were pressured to by society or by family or whatever it is? We didn't feel we weren't fearless enough to like live our own life, you know? Um,
Hmm.
So there's my mom, she's been a nurse for like almost 40 years, and she complains every day that she comes home from work, but you won't see her leave her job, you know? Um
Right.
so that's
Or
just
express
that,
her true passion, right?
or yeah, or even just like entertain it in a fantasy. It's like, no, that's not for me. So yeah, there's a lot of nuggets. There's a lot of like, different things that I really appreciated the book. And I appreciated that I was able to get it and it's an easy read. You didn't have to like think
Yeah,
super,
it is.
super deep about the metaphors, like you get it like right away. So I liked it.
Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you. Jennifer, any comments?
Yeah, yes, I go. I so appreciate this little boy. Like Neverista said, I just wanted to hug him. There's so many things that I related to, kind of the dashing of dreams. But one of the things that really stood out to me was when he was talking to the old king. And this old king was presenting him with this idea of the principles of favorability and how that ties in so succinctly to what we are recently being exposed to. how when you walk in favor, you're making your own decisions for yourself. You know, the white and the black rock really stood out to me too, but that those principles of favorability, that so jumped at me. And how it has to be your mindset, your decisions, your works, your thoughts, the things you're doing that set you up to move forward and be successful. But and also the idea of this, the personal legend. To me, that meant your destiny. To me, that meant your purpose and destiny and what uh, you're supposed to fulfill. And I don't think he's realizing that his personal legend is not necessarily what he thinks it's going to be. So and so that's what I'm tying into, because that's exactly where I'm at. You know, Neferisa said something about this on another call, but I'd been meditating about it, and as many things that I've overcome and conquered, and thought that I was going to be doing, um, I'm kind of feeling like a babe a baby in this. I mean, I forget my earth age, my spiritual age. I feel like a baby in this, and maybe what I'm thinking I'm supposed to do is not what I'm supposed to be doing. So be prepared, and I'm grateful that in this process I have come to realize and be happy with the unknown, uh, but no, I'm going in the right direction. That's where I'm satisfied with right now, is that I'm happy I'm going the right direction, because the decisions I'm making are opening doors for me to do more, to learn more, and learn more about myself. But yeah, that personal legend thing is really touched a touchstone in me about what your destiny and purpose really is, and it may not be what you think it is. So yeah, I love the book.
Right.
So descriptive. I feel transported. I feel like I'm in the, looking at what he's looking at. And I was mad at him when he gave that money to that little man in the bar. That ticked me off. I was like, but that was another thing, was he didn't understand the language. So the one person who understood his language cheated him. But
Yeah.
it was the barkeeper who was trying to warn him in his language, don't do that. But he didn't understand what he said. So the nicest person who came up to him, the most appealing, and the one who spoke his language tricked him. And I was like, okay, I get it. So don't be afraid of the unknown. Don't be afraid of the unfamiliar, because there's something in that for you. So yeah, those are two of the things that stood out to me. Okay.
Thank you, Jennifer. Those are great points. Those are great. You know, it's funny, like hearing all of your points. I think we are on the same wavelength, because these are the things I want to discuss more in this one. Okay. Okay, so let's get started. I brought out a couple of things that stood out to me that relate to our spiritual journeys, whether it be in like our personal journeys or a spiritual journey in general, right? Or others. So the first thing that I saw, which stood out to me, Tiffany, was the prologue. The prologue, the story of Narcissus, right? And it stood out to me because, we have a funny way of redescribing concepts and words, like what is a narcissist, right? There's a popular idea of what a narcissist is: somebody who's manipulative, somebody who's combative, somebody who uses his beauty against you, right, or his charm against you. But in this story, I got a different feeling, right, of what Narcissus in the lake were doing. And, I'll describe it just so we can set the tone. Because in the story, it was this young man, Narcissus, who came to the lake every day to view his reflection. He was enamored by his own reflection, and he would look at his reflection in the water every day and stand there for hours. Right? And one day he came to the lake, looked in his reflection, and fell into the lake and drowned. Right? And the story goes that the deities of the forest came to the lake and saw that the freshwater lake, had changed from freshwater into salt water. And they asked the lake, "Why are you crying? Why are you crying?" And the lake said, "Oh, because he missed seeing Narcissus every day." And the deities of the forest said, "Oh, well, was he actually as beautiful as they say? Like, we always try to catch a glimpse of him, but was he very beautiful? You were the only one that could see him, like, face to face." And the lake sat there and thought for a while, and the lake said, "Well, I never really noticed. I only noticed how beautiful I was in his eyes, the reflection of the lake in his eyes, and that was the only time I could see myself." Now, what thoughts come up when you think of that? Like, there's so many metaphors in that one story, but the lake is the one that really, for me, the lake is the one that really took me, because it's like so many times we are we are looking at the environment that we are in, the people that we tend to interact with are reflections of ourselves. We're attracted to the reflection of ourselves and other people, good or bad, you know? And sometimes to the point where we don't even notice the other person for who they are. And that's really what stood out to me. And it could, from my perspective, it could have been good or bad, right? We sometimes see our good qualities in others, and that's why we're drawn to them. Right? So it just really took me back, because I'm like, then what is a narcissist? Because in the good way, I don't see something so terrible of seeing the good in other people, or the good in you being reflected back in the people that you choose to be around, right? But I guess it could be the other way around too. What are your thoughts on that?
I go. I actually underlined it and wrote notes on that story because I thought it was, I wrote that we are all looking for reflection of ourselves in what is around us. Basically, connection. We're looking for connection. Um, but I didn't think of it in the idea of that we're forgetting to see other people, the other people around us. I did not draw that conclusion. So I was just it just dawned on me that the lake really was, he probably had never seen himself, anywhere. So that was the first time. So he was just appreciating himself in the eyes of Narcissus. But neither one of them, like you just said, neither one of them were appreciating who they were actually looking at, just they were only appreciating what benefited them, because it's kind of an ego thing. Like you said, it benefited them to see themselves. So, but I didn't think of that, that you're kind of missing the other person, or the other the part of the situation that has nothing to do with you and that you could probably benefit from. So I've laughed. Yeah.
I think Tiffany has her hand up, but you're muted,
Yeah,
Tiffany, if
sorry.
you're talking.
I was frozen. Sorry. My bad. I'll go. I was frozen. Um, I I interpreted that story a little differently. Um, the way, and I could have been wrong in my interpretation, or it might just have been meant to be interpreted like many different ways. But how I saw it, um, uh, Narcissus, he spent a lot of time looking at his reflection in the lake, right? And which some people would consider like being a negative, because they may have looked at it like he was too vain, or he was too conceited or whatever. But when the deities of the forest were asking the lake, it seemed like they were like upset about all the time that Narcissus was spending at the lake. It seemed like, well, you're the one, you would know better than we would. He spent all this time with you. It's kind of like the impression that I got. Um, so when the lake when, the deities of the lake, deities of the forest asked the lake, how beautiful was he? Like, you're the one who spent all the time with him. I kind of got it like kind of like gossipy or judgmental because of what Narcissus was doing, spending all of his time looking at his reflection. And what I took from that was the lake saying that he didn't really realize, because I saw when I was looking in his eyes, I was seeing the beauty in myself. I'm gonna butcher the proverb, but it's like the things that we don't like in others is really the things we don't like about ourselves, right? And naturally, the things um that we so like if we love ourselves, if we have like enough healing, we're not going to be like focused on the flaws of the other person, if that makes sense. Because if his viewing himself all the time and spending all his time looking at his own reflection was a flaw, the lake, because he can recognize his own beauty in himself, didn't see the flaw in Narcissus. That's how I
That's
saw it.
interesting.
Yeah, that's how I
That's
saw it.
interesting. Yeah, I mean, the fatal flaw, right? He died looking at his reflection, and the lake couldn't even like help him, right? That's interesting. I hadn't thought about it like that. Okay, thank you, Tiffany. Anyone else?
My first thought at the very end of the story, of the prologue, was, so who was the real Narcissus? The lake or Narcissus? But then I also thought about the fact that him looking at just his reflection and contemplating it for so long ended up having him, in a sense, wrapped up in uh, the vision of him, the reflection of him, the exterior of him, the projection of what he saw of himself, that he died, that he drowned. So it's like he never got a chance to really look at who he really was, because he was only just looking at a reflection, just the exterior. So he never got a chance to even delve into who he was, because he could just be amused or captivated by the exterior beauty that everybody else in the forest wanted to have a piece of, or wanted to get to know. So everybody was, even himself, everybody was captivated by that. But it's like, okay, well, was he really beautiful? And that question even made me think, was he really beautiful? Are we just looking at the exterior and saying that is beauty? Or are we looking at the person and what's inside them and saying, was he really beautiful? And the lake couldn't answer that either, because it was simply looking at the reflection of itself, which is still just the exterior. We know, as in the lake, as in we know with people, there's so much more inside of us. The good, the yucky, the stinky algae, the beautiful fish. There's so much more that makes up us, that if we just get stuck on our reflection, we won't take care of any of those other things. And so we will never really know. Are we really beautiful? And we'll die not knowing. We'll die not delving into those pieces that may need to be fixed, or may need to be grown and cultivated.
Mm.
And, so that's kind of what I thought. It made me think, oh, okay, so everybody in that story was a narcissist, and no one got into any of the depths of, even the lake. And those who really wanted to know never got a chance to know either, because the whole forest was like, well, was he beautiful? So it made me think that, okay, there comes a point that you have to look, no matter whether, people would say to me, oh, Neferista, you're so wonderful, you're so nice. And I would just say, I'm just a reflection of you. But then I had to think about it. I was like, am I though? Am I a reflection of you? And if I am, what does that say? So I don't say that no more. Because now it's made me think on a whole lot of different levels. Let me really look at all of who I am. Let me really see people for all of who they are. for real. So I can meet people where they are, but then they can honestly meet me where I am and take it or leave it. But then I can continue to actually cultivate myself because I'm not just looking at what I want to see.
Yeah, yeah, or what matches somebody else. That's interesting. That's good. I agree. You don't want to be the lake anymore. You don't want to be the lake anymore. Okay, before we move on from the prologue, I got one question for you, and anybody can jump in and answer this question. Why do you think, reading the book, why do you think the author added this Narcissus story as the prologue?
I go. My thinking is that that like tying on to what the other lady said, that he wants us to go deeper. He wanted the shepherd, he has to go deeper and not just focus on this, like, this vision that he has of how things are going. Like what I said too, I have a vision of what I think my life is going to be, but that's not necessarily what it is. So, don't just focus on the outside reflection of what you think is going to come. Let the story unfold and accept the omens that are coming, because that was another thing they talked about later in the book. But these things that are going to present themselves to kind of adjust your journey, adjust your vision, and be ready for that. So, Lafia.
I agree. I think it's saying, like, if you just see what you can see, if you can just see what you want to see, there's going to be so much as you go through the story that you're going to miss. As you read this book and the book unfolds, you're only going to take it from the perspective that you have because it's all you can see. But if you allow yourself to be humble and to give yourself a minute and allow your mind to go where the story is taking you, then you can see the bigger picture, but then you can also see those very same things that may have been going on in your own life that you've kind of blown off because you see things the way you want to see it.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point too, I think all those are right. I think, like you said, Neferisa, when you get down to the bottom of the lake, there's mud, there's algae, there's beautiful fish, there's just so much. So I think that there's not one right answer, because it's really how you absorb the book, what you took out of the book. For me, I I think, based on my perceptions, is that we have to find what's unfamiliar to us, right? Narcissus, it was familiar to him to look at his reflection. It was familiar to him to stand at that shore of the lake and look at his reflection. But had he looked around him, had he looked at the things that were unknown, like for instance the deities in the forest, it kind of like bothered me, because it's like, okay, these guys could have helped him, but they didn't know him. He wasn't interested in looking at his peripherals to see what is in my environment that is unknown, that is supportive to what I want, right? Like, had he thrown a rock in the lake, he would have known how deep it was. It's just so many things, and so it's just that idea of being tunnel visioned into what is familiar could also lead to your destruction, or not, less growth. And so that's kind of what I took out of it too. Okay, let's go into the next one. I'm kind of gonna go in order, right? Uh, I don't know if I'm gonna get through all of my points, but because I had a lot, it was just packed, so many. Okay, let's get into. I thought this was an interesting one. He was talking about his flock of sheep, right? And it's towards the beginning. And he made a comment, I'm paraphrasing, of course, but he made a comment saying, this flock of sheep is so lucky. They're only concerned with food and water. Everything is given to them. They trust me. If I became a monster and killed them one by one, they would not even recognize that. They wouldn't recognize what I was doing until like half the flock was gone, right? They don't know where they're walking. They don't know where they're going. They don't even know that seasons change. They don't know the reality of life. And my question would be, how are we like that? In thinking about, Tiffany's section on ancestral veneration, just thinking about all of the things that we are uh, pushed or exposed to in the Western world, or the way of living in the Western world. How do you think we're all like that flock of sheep, not knowing where we're going, easily controlled?
We human beings are creatures of habit. The reality of it is life is always changing, but we fool ourselves into thinking that things just don't change. We have a stability and a certain way of doing things, and we get stuck in that thing. And here in the West, it's even bigger, because when you're kept in a state of desperation, then all you do is follow, and you feel like the things that you've gotten in that following are keeping you safe. So it becomes like you don't look anywhere else. You don't get out of your comfort zone, because why? I trust this entity, whatever it is, that is giving to me, and so I'm not going to go any further. And that's a double-edged sword, because can you trust that individual? Can you trust that thing? Should that thing be trusted? Is your desperation what is making you be trustful? And you will never step out of that comfort zone to try anything else, or to go anywhere else, or to do what's good for you, because you're comfortable. And change and doing things that grow is never easy, and it's never uncomfortable. So it's like, yeah, you will follow wherever. I think that they're lemurs. The lemurs will, once one jumps off the daggone mountain, they all jump to their death. And it's like, at some point you have to say, okay, am I taking a slow walk to my death, following the shepherd that I'm following? It might not be the quick lemur jump, but is it still death nonetheless? So it's you gotta take the chance to be uncomfortable. You gotta say, is the person I'm following good for me for real? Is it something that is just spurned by my desperation? And desperation will get you to do anything, anything at all.
I go, I go, I
Thank you,
go.
Nefertiti.
I'm reminded of something that Earth Center taught us, which was about animalistic behavior, like what Nefertiti was just speaking about, like a rat coming to a trap with cheese on it will eat the cheese and get snapped and die, and all of the other little rats around it see that, but then another piece of cheese is put on there, and they are going to keep dying. So it's like we just don't pay attention to what's around us, because we're stuck in this survival mode, this desperation mode, like Nefertiti was speaking about. And I am very cynical of institutions, and all I can think about in this flock thing is like how my mother is about the government of the United States and her church. She follows them. At 88, I get that. She's not changing. I'm not trying to change her. We don't approach those subjects, but those are the things that, she just trusts that our government is doing the best for us. That's what her generation was taught. And I don't see it that way, so I question everything. She does not question if a doctor tells her she needs to take this medication, and we've had arguments about this recently, because she's been on a medication that's at 88 making her dizzy, nauseous, not hungry, which is not good at 88. And I'm bugging her, please, Mom, you can't be taking this medication. It's not, what its benefits are not helping you. she eventually we went to the doctor together, and I brought it up, and the doctor agreed with me. Like, you're right, the dosage was too high for you. You should not have been taking it that much. So, but her first thought is to trust blindly and just and hope for the best. And I'm not a hope person. I'm a let's be active and make it work kind of person. So, but I agree, people go blindly in what they are uncomfortable learning about for themselves and advocating about for themselves. And that leads, like you said, it can lead to your destruction and immediately. So, Alafia.
I'll go. It made me think of how in the society, like what Jennifer was speaking to, you have so many people who are willing to follow like what's on the news blindly, what's being taught in schools blindly. My daughter, she's in high school, she's a sophomore, and she comes home and she tells me what she learned in history class, and then I tell her the real history. And sometimes I'm taking her friends home from school, and I get to be pegged that parent, and I'm okay with that because I have to like decolonize their instruction on the way home. And I tell her friends, like, if you don't hear it from anyone else, you're gonna hear it from me. Because I need to make sure you at least knew better, you know. What did they teach? Like, I think they were learning about Thomas Jefferson and how he wasn't really pro-slavery, but he just had to go with it because of the times, and that he talked about his wife and his wife and children. And I said, oh, rewind, take it back. Like, he wasn't pro-slavery, but he had like the most slaves out of all the presidents. Like, what do you? And then his wife was actually, you know, didn't have any rights. So it wasn't his wife. It was an enslaved woman, an enslaved girl. She was 13. Like, and then she's like, what? Like, that's crazy, you know? But it's like, you know, when in the book when he was saying like they only have to worry about food and water, and I can become this monster and kill them all one by one, and they won't even notice until half of them are already gone. It's like, what is going on in society where like our food is poisoned, our water is poisoned, like there's nothing that is provided to us that doesn't have to be like deeply inspected and like regarded. You have to go through a lot of like extra measures just to make sure that the food you're providing your kids is clean enough. You can't even say like organic is even organic because that's still hybrid food, you know? So, but then like as much of the resources that we have, as much of it is unpure. If you tell the average American that, they consider you a conspiracy theorist. Why would our government ever do that? And it's just like talking to a brick wall. So it kind of just reminded me that it's like harder, even like my having some conversations with my dad, and I'll talk about some of these things, and it's like, why would the government do that? I'm like, I don't understand how you don't understand as a black man why the government wouldn't do that. But yeah, that's what it made me think of, like how much in control the society is on um our ability collectively to even think for ourselves. Yeah, it's the cognitive dissonance. But how willing we are to even think for ourselves. I had heard one time, if you want to control a people, you control their food and water. So it's like, how are we gonna, you know, the water we take, it's we can't even store rainwater. That's illegal in a lot of states, you know. Um, when it comes to food, a lot of us can't grow our own food. Like, seed sharing can be illegal, right? They want you to buy it. They want to know that they have it trademarked, all that stuff. So yeah, it's very interesting. Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
Thank you, ladies. Those are very good observations when it comes to that passage. And you're right, it makes me think of institutions and their control over people. And then also, I wanted to add that it made me think about religion Because when you think about Christianity, let's say I haven't been in any other religion, but Christianity says what are we, flocks of sheep? We're flocks of sheep, and Jesus is the shepherd. Or your pastor is the shepherd and you the flock of sheep. And that's what it really made me think about. Like, we are not even understanding that the seasons change. We're not even understanding like nature, its principles, how this existence is, right? Because everything in this institution of religion is given to us, right? And we don't know whether it's given to our detriment or not. So many scandals in the church, so many people being misled with uh, missing information or controlling information. It just, that's what it made me think of. And I think later on in the book or the next page or so, he mentions like how he wanted to travel and how he was looking for a new road to travel, and his parents were just really like, go to seminary, be a priest, you know. And he had made a comment. He said, well, I couldn't have found God in the seminary, which is profound. It's like you couldn't find God in the church, where he seemed to be very religious or come from a very religious family. And he said, I had to walk a new path. I had to travel. I had to walk down a new road untraveled to find a God through experiences, through people, through nature. Like, that was really profound for me, and it reminds me of many of us on our walks when we decided to move away from religion and walk this road, right? We couldn't find God in the seminary. We couldn't find God in the Baptist church. We found connection to source on our spiritual journey, on our walk. So that's really what it reminded me of as well. So all of those things that you said are true as well, because we're being poisoned, right? But we still go out to eat. We still we still do those things. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. One story in this part was really interesting, and it's probably going to unlock a lot of conversation. But it was the story of his dream interpretation when he went to the not the priest, when he went to the gypsy. Excuse me, maybe that was a Freudian slip. When he went to the gypsy for the dream interpretation, and well, let's just talk about it. What were your thoughts about that whole interaction? Him telling her about the dream, her there was one part. Let me go back, because there was one part where she was trying to interpret his dream, and well, she wasn't trying, but she was going to interpret his dream, and she began to review the dream, and she told him, I can tell you what it means if it's God talking, like if God is talking um in human, like in our language, then I can understand what your dream means. But if God is talking in the language of the soul, only you can understand what it meant. That really stood out to me, especially being a dreamer. And a lot of people saying, oh, I need dream interpretation, I want to go get this dream interpreted. But really, it's only you who can determine the meaning of your dream, the meaning of your destiny, right? So that really stood out to me. But what stood out to you in that gypsy interaction?
I'll go. I think the same. I was thinking the same thing you were speaking of. That what stood out was that she was another person on his path telling him, it's your decision. This is your path. This is your destiny, and you have to make the choice. So, each person he keeps coming to are telling him the same things, just in different ways. So, and didn't he? Maybe I'm remembering it wrong, but didn't he say like every time the dream was supposed to get to this one point, it ended, and he'd wake up like, so now it's for you to interpret this to move that dream forward for yourself. It's not for someone to tell you what to do. It's for you to, start the personal legend, start the personal quest. So, that's what stood out to me when she said if it was the language of the soul, then it's for you to interpret. That's what I was like, oh, okay. So I put it back on myself. All these things are my choice. All these things are for me. These omens that they kept saying omens in the book too, are omens coming in, are for me to get it right and make the choice to move it forward. So, Alafia.
Any other comments? That was good, Jennifer. Thank you. And the priest is like, I'll be quiet. I'll be quiet on this one.
Listen,
Okay.
I had to go back in the part, and he was saying, if God is speaking the language that we speak, I can interpret it. But if it's the language of the soul, which is your soul, I can't tell you what your soul is saying. I can't interpret your soul because I ain't you. And I think it was Jennifer was saying, what I had said, like when you feel like we make decisions. I don't think we ever have time to stop and really look inside ourselves and saying, what should I do next? What am I moved to do? What is in me to do? This world keeps you moving so fast that you just have to make a decision and go. And you make the best of the decision that you make. It may not be the right decision, but especially us women, we make the best of the decision we make. And the outcome will look good because we can make the best out of anything. Now we can look back later on and we'll be like, that was not, I shouldn't have did that. Everybody else around us will be like, but look at how good that was. And so when you get to a point that you start realizing that maybe perchance, regardless of me making the best of the decision, none of these decisions were good for me. None of them. None of them, not a nary a one, was really good for me. Not a damn one, y'all. Then you have to stop. And you want someone to tell you because you feel like you don't know anything. You want someone to tell you what you should do. And even when he came and here she was, okay, I'm going to the gypsy and supposedly she knows everything. And then he was like, well, I don't know. I can't trust what the gypsy's saying because she ain't of God. I'm a Christian and she ain't of God, so I can't trust her. So for me, it was twofold. It was like maybe everybody that you think is telling you the wrong thing, maybe you should listen to them. People who don't look like you or sound like you or do what you do, just because they aren't packaged up the way you think they should look, maybe you should still give them an ear because they're telling you something good for you. It ain't what you want to hear. It ain't going to make you feel better. Because at the end of the day, what she said is like, listen, this is about you and your journey, and I can't tell you what to do about that. I can give you what I see for you. And at the end of the day, you're going to walk away feeling just as lost because the answer is inside of you. But you have to slow down. You got to slow down and you got to believe that you have the answer. And once you believe that you have the answer and then become a seeker, because this was the prelude to his journey. Once you become a seeker, then the teacher, the answers, they come. So it was like, I just sat there when I read it. I was like, oh, dag nabbit. I mean, can't somebody just tell me what to do? Just tell me that I'm right. Tell me that I'm wrong. Tell me that I'm stepping in the right direction. And she just said, listen, you're going to have, like life, you're going to have to pay me either way. Whether I give you the answer that you want or I give you what you're supposed to have, you're going to have to pay me either way. Because that's what life does. Look, you don't have to listen. You do what you want to do, but you're gonna have to pay either way. So it made me slow down and think, oh, okay. Let me try to really shake off this doubt. Let me really try to shake off this doubt. Because at the end of the day, it's my decision. But the only way that you can get to the root of what's really the best decision is to know yourself.
Interesting. Interesting. Tiffany, you had anything before I comment?
I could say that the exchange between the two of them was a little cringy. I felt it was a little cringy because he went in there with this like, his preconceived ideas, and I don't think he was very open to receiving the message anyway. And it's like when you go for divination or you go for reading or whatever the case may be, like you have to be open. Um, and also, it reminded me a little bit of Neo in the Matrix when he went to go see the Oracle and he was like rejecting the message, but then he didn't receive the message he thought he was going to get, but he received what he needed to get to the message himself, to get to the actual destination himself. So it just kind of reminded me, like, when you go to someone for consultation, like you need to be open to receiving the message in whatever way they delivered it to you, and let go of your biases and preconceived ideas, your expectations of what it should be, and allow, spirit or the divine to utilize them in whatever way is needed for you to get the message, whether it's directly or indirectly. Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. All of the conversation brought up a good point. That was one of the things that I wanted to discuss. Neferisa, you had mentioned, like, he had got this help that told him to self-reflect, and he, for this help, the gypsy had asked him to give, like, let's say, like 10% of his or what did she say? What she said, 1/10, right? 10% of his findings, his treasure, right? And what made me think of this was that um, later on in the book, the I say the deity that he met told him, "Give me 1/10 of your flock," right? And proceeded to tell him, "Don't ever promise something you don't have," right? And it made me remember the teachings that Priestess Haner had, Priestess Mianu, I'm like I'm in the workshop, Mianu had mentioned, because one of the laws of existence is that you first have to give before you can receive. You have to put in the work, you have to put out the energy. You first have to give of what you have to receive more. That is the law of existence. And when you understand the law of existence, it makes it easy to know when somebody is tricking you or when somebody is being authentic with you. Because the gypsy, he was weary. He had intuition. He was weary of the gypsy, one, because of his Christian values, but two, it was cringy. Like Tiffany said, it was cringy. And she gave him a piece of the information, and she made him promise something he didn't have. And in that way, to me, she kind of tricked him because it doesn't go along with nature. Basically, what she did was say, "I'll give you this, I'll give, you can receive, and then give me later." But that's not how existence works. You first have to give of what you have to receive later. So when he met the old man and he said, "Give me what you have, give me 10% of what you have, and I'll get you, I'll make sure you receive something, right? More towards your goal." that to your mind, you're like, you fit it into the key, like that goes along with the principles of nature. He must be telling the truth, or he should be telling the truth, right? Something to benefit me. So that's what made me think about it. Because a lot of people can give you half truths and get you invested, and then trick you at the end, right? Who knows what he's gonna get, and who said it's gonna be gold? You know, he could have gained a whole family and lineage, and now he has to give over 10% of his daughters and sons, and you never know. He might have gained access to power, to deity. Now he got to give her 10%. Like, you just don't know. So that's what it reminded me of. The principle of nature. You have to give first before of what you have before you can receive more. Okay. What else we got? What else we got here? What else? Okay. When he got, oh, yes, Neferisa, you have something?
I have a question just because I know what alafia means, but I hear everybody saying I go, and I don't know what that means, and that's why I'm not saying it. So can someone spell it for me and tell me what it means?
Anybody want to help out? Any sisters want to help her out? Come on. I see it on your face, Tiffany. This is a sisterhood. We got to teach each other.
Because I ain't gonna say something, y'all, that I
That's
don't know
that's
what it
not
means.
what you're reading. I promise you, that's not what you're seeing on my face. I don't know what it means either. I just know you're supposed to say it before you speak.
Yeah, I don't know the meaning of it as well. I was just instructed before you begin speaking, to open the channel, to speak. You say I go. So but I don't recall us getting a definition of the actual word. And I go like AGO, ago. Yeah. A lot.
Okay, well, that's a good question, Neferista. Now we can all learn. So ago is something that it's a phrase that we say in spirituality when we want to, when it's our time to speak. So when we are addressing the ancestors, when you're addressing the deities, you don't just speak, right? It's rude. You say, I'll go. It's like, I'm here. I have something to say. Excuse me. Okay. Um, when we are talking to even people, instead of interrupting, or, you say, I'll go. And it's, excuse me, I'm coming through. Priestess Mianu says that, like, in the markets here in Benin, it's a spiritual thing, but it's also a cultural thing. So in the markets, you might hear, "Oh man, coming through. I'll go." All right. Like, excuse me, coming through, coming through. And the response that we give is Ame, Ame, Ame. It's acknowledging somebody coming through, right? And so in spirituality and culture and traditions, it's the same way. When you want to begin your prayer, when you want to address the deity, when you want to address somebody, I'll go. Okay? And at the end, when you're done, Alafia is a closing. It means peace. Okay? All right. Okay, let's go. Where are we at? Where are we at? So what do we talk about? Okay, so interestingly enough, the alchemist went to Merida. Interestingly enough, he was in Spain. He traveled 2 hours on a boat across the Gibraltar Strait and landed himself in Merida. Okay, Morocco, that area, that North African area. So this is very interesting to our walk, because this is what we're all doing, right? We're like going on our spiritual journey, and it's all leading us back to Merida. And what was interesting is when he landed in Merida, what did he notice? He noticed that everything was different, right? His observations were like, He saw men just walking hand in hand. That was awkward to him, right? In Spain, he was used to people with swords, and battle gear. Men don't walk hand in hand, right? He saw women covered modestly. That was strange to him. What's wrong? Why are they covered? You know, he saw a priest, right, ringing bells every couple of hours and everybody bowing down to the priest. That was strange to him. He only went to mass or whatever every Sunday or Saturday, like once a week, right? And that was interesting to me because he called them infidels. But truly, he was seeing the peace, the harmony, the dedication to spirituality somewhere else that was different from his war-torn lands. I say war-torn because he was from Europe. War-torn lands. And it was interesting, his perspective on what was peaceful was strange and weird and evil, and what was violent and competition and separation was normal, pious, acceptable behavior. How do you think we are, not us, but as people, right? People are when they go to new places and experiencing things. How do you think this is correlating with that?
I'll go. Uh, I, I see it. I talk about this all the time with friends who travel, that there's a lack of humility in people who look at different cultures. It's even here in the country when they hear people speaking Spanish or Arabic or Ethiopian or something. There's such a lack of humility and interest in learning something different. And but especially in general, when Americans travel, they are really a-holes to people in other countries. They are awful, awful. There's such this sense of entitlement that everything has to be the same as what I'm used to, as if you're not traveling to see something new, to experience life in another place. I'm so grateful to my parents for exposing us early to travel. We traveled this entire country numerous times as children and got to camp every summer and spring. We were somewhere else. So for me, it opened my eyes up to know that there is much more beyond San Diego, beyond my community, beyond the state of California, and then beyond this country. Took us down to the Caribbean when that was my graduation present. Well, she was going there for a nurses convention anyways, but that's how she presented it to me at the time. I didn't know. But I mean, even that, and being able to leave the country and Mexico, the Caribbean and Canada and see different cultures, it totally opened me up, and I was willing as a child. So, but as adults, there's people who don't even leave their neighborhoods, let alone their city or state, but they're just not exposed. And their lack of humility and sense of entitlement is really sickening to me. It boggles my mind. So that's what I think he was coming with, that sense of entitlement, and anything different from where I was raised is like, for the times, infidel was the way to call anyone who was not Christian. So yeah. Alafia, alafia, alafia.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you. Any other comments before we start discussing? But that's definitely one of the things that I thought of as well.
Yeah, you see, I got it now. As soon as he said it, I thought, how you gonna call somebody else an infidel in their house? You in their house. You in their house. So if anybody's the infidel, it would be you. You came in their house. How rude and disrespectful that you came 2 hours across the street. They didn't come to you and they didn't ask you to come. So here you are, and then you're gonna look around with your nose up. And it was like, of course, we as human beings, when you experience something new, it's new and it's unusual. That, that is to be said. But to pass judgment, to misjudge or judge hastily, is the part that comes from indoctrination, that comes from things being poured into you. So for you to only look at life through your lens without being able to see where you are. That's almost like going outside and saying, damn you, rain, for raining on me. Like, the gall, how you gonna cuss the rain? You went outside. So I because he's such a cool little dude, he's so humble in some ways, but then you can see his arrogance, like, because he's been a shepherd, and he kind of gloats because of that, but at the same time, he understands his station isn't much in other ways. Then he has that moment of feeling bad. Here he is traveling, and you think, okay, he says he loves going places and learning new things, and he's learned all these things because he's been able to travel. But then when he gets there, he's like, it was like the double-edged sword of like the dichotomy of him. Like, he had two sides, where it was the humble him and the arrogant him all wrapped up in one person, which really made me think of myself. And I had to say, okay, because this was my first year that I looked at myself and said, oh, you know what, I think I might be arrogant. And I was very confused at first, because I was like, not me. But then I could see how that happens to us in different ways. In the little piece of the things that we have, we hold on to it so ferociously that it makes us lack humility and lack humbleness, because we're not where we think we should be, but we hold on to those little things to make us more than what we are. And it's okay to not be more than whatever the world has said to you should be. Just where you are, be able to be honest with it, and then all these new things that you experience and you can learn and grow from. So it's like he had a moment that I thought it stifled his growth for a second, because he couldn't take it in properly. He couldn't just be like, wow, and I wonder why, and ask questions and learn from that experience. So it made me reflect on myself and say, oh, okay, I've been asking and lamenting for humility and humbleness. And it was like, I even have it as one of my task reminders to be humble and have humility. So it definitely reminded me in that moment, okay, let me slow down and really work on not misjudging or judging something hastily just because of what has been poured into me in the West. I love you, I love you, I love you.
Thank you, Nerissa. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Yeah, we definitely have a lot of work to do to decolonize our minds. Right? Even how much we try, we can still be like him sometimes. Tiffany, did you have anything?
I'll go. Yes, it was kind of, piggybacking on what Jennifer and Neferista said. Um, it's always interesting when your environment can reflect to you the things that you still need to work on, the places that you're not healed or decolonized yet, right? Because he's a shepherd, and he says multiple times in the book how he's traveled to many different places. He has all these different friends, and so he paints the picture as if he should have a more open mind than others, right? That as opposed to the baker, who might have looked over and seen, different people doing different things and passing this judgment. You would think of all of those other stations, he would be the one that would pass the least amount of judgment. But he even found in himself, judging, the clothes and judging everyone's disposition and how they were praying and practicing and things like that. So it's very cool when you able to see reflected, like, oh, like that's something that still needs to, that's something that still needs to be corrected or still needs to be fixed, because we think that we're in the place that we are, we're aligning ourselves with our healing, but if we haven't recognized in other ways that we need to be healed, we're kind of missing the point, or missing the mark. And it also reminded me of the gentrification right now. Well, it's been happening for a while in the Virgin Islands after the hurricanes that passed. A lot of the people that, have been there generationally can't afford to um to repair their homes, and so they've had to sell their lands and their homes off cheap to colonizers. And um people from the States will come in and they'll pass judgment. The music's too loud and the food smells different, and why are things run this way? Last time I visited, a lot of the businesses, a lot of the mom and pop stores still ran off of a tab. You pay your tab at the end of the month. That's very different than how it is in the States. So then you have people coming from the States telling you how you're supposed to run your business and how you should, uh, you know, you should have the music down at a certain time. Folks are trying to sleep. And it's like, how dare you? You weren't invited, first of all. Like, you came here on your own. So you would think to learn the community and learn the culture before you move here, not try to force others to adopt your view. You should be coming in with humility, looking to have a new cultural experience. That's why you move outside of the States, to have the cultural experience. How are you trying to bring I mean, yes, it's US territory, but it's a totally different culture. So how are you leaving the mainland, trying to bring those same principles that you could have stayed in the States for that, Why are you running up our prices for that? Like, pricing us out of our own communities and trying to erase our culture. So yeah, it reminded me of that too. Alafia.
Thank you, Tiffany. That was a good correlation, and it kind of pulled together with what a lot of people were saying, because when we talk about like us and traditions, going back to Africa, reclaiming our roots, we tend to bring a lot of the colonized ideas, mindsets to Africa, to our traditions, right? And sometimes, most of the time, that corrupts our traditions. And so when you have those who are keeping to the traditions and will not be corrupted, and you are interfacing with them, trying to go deeper in your spiritual journey, there is a level of realization, like I think maybe Neferista or Tiffany said, there's a level of realization that you're not so as open as you thought you were. You're not so humble as you thought you were. You still have this, you came from a place that didn't value humbleness or didn't value humility, right? And so for us, even though we are Africans living in America, wanting to reclaim our roots, Miano always says, like, you will always be decolonizing your mind. I mean, to a certain level, right? But you will always have to check the colonizer. You know what I'm saying? The mindset of the colonizer. You always have to check it. And so this is a simple reminder of that. I mean, he didn't check it, but for us, we have those thoughts. Like we come here like, why is everybody bowing? Right? That's a foreign concept of showing that much humility and respect to a human being. Right? And we think, oh, it's lessening us, when really we're respecting all the energies that come with that person, right? All of the knowledge that comes with that person, all the deities that sit with them, all their ancestors. This is why we're bowing, right? But we don't think of it that way. And in the same way that he did it. So that was interesting. And then one of you said something like, when you're seeing something every day, you're thinking it's kind of the norm. And he had mentioned something like that as well. It was in one passage where he was like, when someone is seeing you every day, they become part of your life. And they want that person to change the way they see that person should change. And if you don't change, they become angry, right? And he said everybody has their idea of how people should lead their lives, but nobody has an idea about their own. I thought that was an interesting concept. I think, Tiffany, this is one of the things you noticed when you were reading. This is one of the points that came out for you, right? Yeah. So I thought that was interesting. And I thought that was interesting that he had said that, but still acted that way. You know, when he was around others, thinking about how people should live their lives, how this was an incorrect way. So it's just something to think about when you're on your journey, how we're always having to check that within ourselves. Okay. So let's get into the world's greatest lie. What is the world's greatest lie, according to the book? According to the book. The old man said there's the world's greatest lie. Do you remember what he said? Anybody can tell me? Okay. He said the world's greatest lie. Oh man, I should just make y'all go look for it and then come back next week. Okay, we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that. Yeah. Okay. We talked about a personal legend. Oh, yeah, we talked about a personal legend, right? Um, Tiffany, Jennifer, you're the one who brought that up about the personal legend, right? Um, let's see what I want to say about this. And you said the personal legend was destiny. Can you speak to why you correlated personal legend to destiny?
I go. The way that the old king was talking about it was he kept explaining to him like that in line with the principles of favorability, like these are the things that are going to make you no, I can't really discuss it. Let me stop.
Yeah.
Let me look at my notes. I'm like looking at the book trying to speak from my head, that doesn't work. So um he said something about like there's a force that wants you to realize your personal legend. To me, that it correlated with like there's a source or ancestor or a deity that wants you to manifest what it is you're supposed to manifest in this life. So that's what I meant by like your destiny, your purpose. There's something greater than you that's waiting to come out of you, but you have to step on the path to that journey. You have to, write your own story and create that personal legend for yourself. So, by doing so, whatever it is that you're guided to do. But that's what I got from it, was that you need to be able to identify and make the choices that get you to that goal, that get you on that journey. So, and the universe is conspiring with you to make that happen. I know he said that. and I think
He
we've said
did.
that here. The universe is conspiring with you. And I've heard that over and over again, but I get it. The universe is conspiring with you. It's with you. You have to be doing something and wanting something and working towards that something to make it happen. So, alafia, alafia, alafia.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yeah, I wanna bring that, bring that out a little bit because in this personal legend, yeah, it's basically your mission, right? Your mission here on earth, your destiny. And it was interesting. He said like everybody, who's crying? Oh, everybody is sorry, the kids. everybody is everybody knows their personal legend when they're young, right? Because when you're young, everything is possible. And somehow when you get older, people kind of take you away from what that is. But he did mention that there is a mysterious force But I don't know how easy it is to work with this mysterious force. Because in the book, this is what we have to realize. Like, yeah, everything in the universe is conspiring for us uh, to reach our mission. But there's a part of us that needs obstacle, that needs us to work for it. You know, he said there's a mysterious force, and it makes you feel like it is impossible to reach your goal, to reach your mission. It's a mysterious that makes you feel like it's impossible. It's so difficult. But it is that force that appears to be negative. Actually, it shows you how to reach legend, your personal legend, or your mission here on earth. Now, if we go back to Heal the Healer, talking about your pain, to the measure, what to the degree of your pain is the degree of your power. This mysterious force is is kicking, like it knows what it's doing. Because it says it appears to be negative, but it actually shows you how to reach your personal legend. It prepares your spirit and your will, okay, to get that thing that you really want. Any thoughts on that?
I go. Hmm. This is so big. Um, if we use the example that you just said, and I just take my own life, in my life, I know priesthood and healing, being a healer, it's in my destiny. That was in a reading. Long before the Earth Center and having a reading, um, I knew when I had my children, I wanted to make sure that the things that I put in them were natural. So they were my guinea pigs. I can honestly say now, I I can't say I had the technical knowledge to know that the herbs that I was giving them were the right things to do. Now I've learned some things and now I can look back and say, "Ooh, I was right." But I have to look at what we're saying and saying everything in my life, every single struggle that put me in a position that I had to figure out something for my children, for our health, for my own health, for my betterment, in every single struggle when we didn't have enough of something and I couldn't afford medicine or couldn't afford to strap one of them on my back and walk the distance to get to the doctors, it made it so I had to figure it out. And at some point in my life, a doctor came who had not been exposed to any type of traditional medicine or herbal medicine or holistic medicine. And because of what I was doing, she was like, okay, well, now I'm going to have to learn because you're doing it. And I know you're not going to listen to me. So let me learn so I can make sure that I can take care of you. Because I would just call her and say, okay, this is what's going on with my children. This is what I'm doing and this is what I'm giving them. I need you to confirm that I'm right or wrong. And she would say, it sounds like what you're doing is right. Bring them in. And she's like, I don't know how you knew they had an ear infection, but yep, they have an ear infection. And yet, what you're doing is right. So, yep, keep doing what you're doing. I can give you some penicillin, but I know you're not going to take it. But so it's made me realize that the struggles, oh, goodness gracious, the struggles you go through in life, whatever they look like, however they are preparing you and giving you another layer of what you need to fulfill for this book, your personal legend. Like it was saying, he was a shepherd because he liked to travel. And the king had said, aha, well, even better, because being a shepherd, you go from place to place. You are a nomad going from place to place because you have to find grass for your sheep. And thus he traveled. And thus he learned, because what he really wanted to do is travel. And this was the mechanism. So it makes you have to really, as an individual, even if you don't know, if you think you don't know what your personal legend is, if you take some time and sit with your struggles and what your struggles gave to you or unveiled, then you can know what, because whatever you learn through your struggle, if you've been humble enough to learn something from your struggle, and if you've gotten far enough that you've lived through your struggle, you can look back and see all you've learned and be able to understand, oh, this is the path I'm supposed to be on. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. So I say this stressfully, just because I know I've just continuously been running from being anything priesthood, although I talk to so many people and counsel them in so many ways in their life. And I run from being a healer, although if you come to me and you need something, I'm going to make you something. But my life has prepared me for those things, and now I can understand that what he's saying about all of existence conspires to your betterment, to the true person that you are, and towards your betterment. No matter the fight and the fights that you have with life is really just the fights with yourself, because you're unwilling to move in those positions. So it's going to be a struggle. So yeah, alafia, alafia, alafia.
Beautifully said. Hmm. Any other comments? Any other thoughts that brings up for you?
I'll go. Um, I had to look up the word legend, because the first definition that kept coming up is like, someone who's like famous for something, right? It gave a lot of like descriptions about that, but then also there's like the legend on the map. And I don't read maps. I'm like, I'm a person of my time. I don't read maps. I GPS everything. So understanding like what actually is the legend. I know it involves a map, but I didn't know what its role was on the map. And the legend explains what is on the map, right? The map gives you the course, the direction, and then the legend explains the symbols, the colors, the objects that are found on the map that tells you the direction to go. So when you look at the king asking him, you know, about like, or when he was sharing with the king that he became a shepherd because he likes to travel. And the king's like, yes, like, okay, yeah, you would be a shepherd because you like to travel. You travel being a shepherd because you have to move your flock to and from. That would be a reflection of you traveling if that's what was on the map. But who's to say it had to be a shepherd? There's other designations he could have picked that would have included him traveling. Um, so that was just what I thought of like in that exchange, because I think the king was more so confirming the traveling part. He was more speaking to the traveling part and not the actual occupation. I think he wanted the boy to really consider like the traveling was more of what was meant to happen, not the occupation itself. Um, and that goes back to, the legend. It's explaining, what the relationships are, but not what that relationship is entirely. It's just giving you a guide of how to interpret those objects and those needs in that map. So alafia, alafia, alafia.
Oh, Tiffany, if you had only gone one step further, that was a beautiful, because like when I say one step further, because it was like, oh man, that legend, I hadn't thought of it like that before. Like I hadn't thought of it being a legend on a map. But when you talking about like like him being a shepherd. Yeah, excellent perspective. When you're talking about like him being a shepherd and having to travel and finding his personal legend, like to me, when you said that, it just cracked open my mind and like said, oh, so you mean his personal direction, his path, his personal path. Like, yeah, he's moving around, but only he knows where his destinations are based on his legend, based on his path. That was phenomenal. Hmm. Interesting. Personal legend, which also speaks, Jennifer, to your destiny, the path to your destiny. See, it's all coming together. Okay. Wow. I didn't think about that. Huh. Okay. Thank you, Tiffany. That was good. That was good. Okay. 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 Quick quote. Quick quote. This is like the favorite quote that I found in these 42 pages. It says, treasure is uncovered by the force of flowing water, and it is hurried by the same current. What do you think he was talking about? The treasure is uncovered by the force of flowing water, and it is hurried by the same current.
I go. Um, I remember when we were in Medita, and we were taught about how, you know, in a sense, the gifts and the things that you have come through the flow of the stream, or the water is what brings it to you. And when you just look at how water is, anything that's in the water, it's it's like you can't stay in the same piece of water the same time because it's always flowing. But at the same time, it does uncover everything. Water uncovers everything, but it swiftly moves. It swiftly moves. So just as quickly as it's uncovering all this greatness, it is rushing forward. And you have to be able to rush forward with it. You have to be able to keep up with it. And it's not saying that if you don't keep up with it, something else isn't coming down through the water to you, but it just means you've missed something great that may have been uncovered. So it's that balance of being able to stand in that water and be aware enough to see what's being uncovered. And then, like the fish that you need to grab, fast enough to grab that fish so you can eat. That's what I got from that. It's twofold. Alafia, alafia, alafia.
Thank you, Neferista. Yes, yes, yes. The flow, be in flow. That's what it reminded me of when you said that. Be in flow. Anybody else?
I'll go. To me, it's saying, well, just like what we are, before we were purifying ourselves regularly or cleaning out of our minds, we had to be doing something, which is the flow, be moving so that we could uncover the treasure within us. And we have to keep moving and keep being in the flow if we want to stay up with that treasure, because it will move it right along. It's a treasure is not something that you can grasp and hold on to and just keep. It's something that's constantly going to be in motion. It's constantly going to be growing, just as we are in our spiritual journey, constantly uncovering deeper layers and deeper mysteries and deeper things we need to heal, and different ways that we need to express those things. So it's, to me, it's the movement it's really about, like you said, be in flow. And I think for me, the treasure is, spiritual direction, and that I have to keep moving with this. I have to keep going with the study and keep going with the things that I know to do. So Tiffany said, be right back. Sorry, I got distracted. Alafia, alafia, alafia.
Yeah, thank you. You know, water is spirituality, and when you think about like our spiritual walk, we have to be in flow. We have to be in flow with the divine. We have to be pure enough to recognize that flow. Like you said, Jennifer, we have to be in flow. And so it just really reminded me of our spiritual journeys and how when you are in flow, your steps are hurried. Your steps towards your goal are hurried and meaning supported, right? You are picked up and carried further than you would have if you were running along the banks or if you were going against the current. So that's yeah, that was my favorite little quote in those 42 pages. Okay. All right. I think we have like 30 minutes left, and I want to ask you your thoughts on the old king. So it took me a minute to realize that Melchizedek was the old wise man and the king and the deity because there was a story about him asking advice from the wise old man in his palace. And he asked for advice, and the wise old man didn't give it to him. He said, "Look, I'm gonna give you this spoon. I think it was a spoon. I'm gonna give you this spoon. And I'll put like 2 or 3 drops of oil. You go walk around. You come back. Don't drop the oil." So he walked around, focused on the spoon, not dropping one drop of oil. Get down. Get down. Not dropping one drop of oil, and came back and was like, "I did it. I didn't drop no oil." And the man was like, "Did you see all of my treasures? Did you see the beauty of the palace? Did you see the garden? Did you see the paintings?" Like, he didn't see nothing. He said, "Go back, right? Go back and see the treasures." And so he did. He went back with his spoon and looked at everything. It was amazing. But when he came back, he dropped some oil. He didn't have all the oil in the spoon. And the wise man told him, what did the wise man said, um, even though, oh, okay, he said, the secret to happiness is, well, let's go back. He said, you cannot trust a man if you don't know his house. Right? And that speaks a lot to us in spirituality. Because you got a lot of people here that they're not connected to their temples. They're not connected to their house. Like you don't even know you can't tell who they are. You can't trust a man if you don't know his house, which is why he wouldn't give him any information until he went to go through the house and see who he was. Then he told him the secret to happiness is to see all the wonders of the world, but never forget the drips of oil on the spoon. What do you think that meant? I'll leave it open.
A lot. I'll go. I wrote, this is another one that I underlined and wrote notes. To me, I thought like the drops of oil on the spoon are something that needed to be protected and were sacred. Like to me, that was your spiritual practice, that you have to carry that with you everywhere and keep it protected as you go out into this beautiful world and see unknown things, and but you can never let that drop, because that's the like sacred oil, anointed oil, or something like that. That's what I was thinking when I first saw that. But to take care of yourself and your gifts always. I mean, the drops could be yourself as well, but to take care of yourself and your gifts always while you're out in the world. So Lafayette, Lafayette.
Thank you, Jennifer. Yes. Okay. Yes, that's a very good explanation, because even when we're talking about the Heal the Healer workshop, we're talking about purity. We're talking about our connection to the divine world. We're talking about our spirituality and how we have to protect that. And that's what we were building in the fast in October, building our purity, And then afterwards, it was our job to protect it as we go out into back into the environment, right? So that's a good perspective. Thank you for that. Any other comments, new perspectives? What did he mean?
I go. Um, Again, it reminded me of a saying that we were told in initiation that you cannot be an island of purity in a sea of corruption. So it reminded me that, you're going to have your spoon, and there has to be a certain amount of balance in how you do everything that you do. Because if you sit there and say, okay, I'm just going to hold on to this spoon, and I'm not going to spill anything, and so I'm building all the things I need to be my best self. You have to think, are you really? Because there's so much that you're avoiding. There's so much that can't even come to you because you're just like this. In your growth, we cannot grow if we don't have challenges. We cannot grow if we don't have struggles. So you can protect the oil, you'll have all the oil, but you can't be an island of purity in a sea of corruption. So it means, just like Jennifer was saying, as you go through your walks, you have your oil. It's going to be there. You have it. But don't think that you can hold on to it so much that you miss everything else that's going on in the world. You can't grow that way. So you have to be able to experience and see these things and learn, and always be mindful of what you got. Always be mindful and always do what you need to do, because sometimes that may mean that you have to replenish the oil. Whatever that looks like, to replenish the oil. Protect it, but replenish it, because only you can protect you. We can only protect ourselves. And it's not by pointing the finger at others. It's by being mindful of who we are as we interact with the world. So it makes a bigger layer, because when you're first on this journey of purity, I know because of all sorts of things, I kind of was in my house, in my little bubble for a long time. And then I had some mental health crises. That's even helped me in the bubble. And I thought I was doing good. I thought I came out of it, was doing good. And then I had my first relationship with somebody else that was not in my comfort. Child, I just lost it all. But then I realized I hadn't been interacting with certain aspects of existence for me to be able to face that moment well, to have the things I need to face it well. So that part just reminded me of that. Like, while you're sitting there holding on, what are you missing? What are you missing? There has to be a balance.
Okay, thank you, Neferisa. That was a really important point, when you mentioned balance. There has to be a balance. And he said the secret to happiness. It's like the secret to me, it was like the secret of happiness is balance, you know? Because he says you have to see all the wonders of the world, but never forget the drips of oil on the spoon. So it's like we have to keep our spirituality and our purity. We have to keep that with what is precious to us. We have to keep that whole. But we also have to have balance to where we can experience the wonders of the world. So like for instance, as he's walking around and he's looking at these beautiful things, there might be times where he has to slow down. Maybe there are times he has to sit and let that oil settle. Maybe there are times that he has to lean to the side, hold the oil with a different hand, to keep it from moving. What if the wind's blowing? Maybe he has to turn his back and guard it while he's looking at things. So it's like, as you're experiencing the world, don't what do you call it? Don't what do you call it? Not abandon yourself. Don't corrupt yourself. No, I'm saying don't be untrue to yourself, right? As you're experiencing the wonders of the world, you have to be true to yourself. But through balance, you can keep what's precious, precious, and still experience the wonders of the walk that you're on, right? The wonders of the world. And so I thought that was profound. And I think a lot of us are, even me, like when I first started my journey, I was sick because I lacked balance. Simply. It's not simply. I mean, like, because I like balance. And sometimes we can just be so hyper focused. And like you said, Neferisa, we're not growing. We're not pulling in from the environment the beautiful things that will help us fortify this oil that we're trying to keep whole. So I thought that was an interesting story. All right. Okay. So to end it, I want to talk about omens. In the book, he talks a lot about omens. And, in this society, an omen is like a bad thing, but really it's like a sign to show you direction, right? The clues, the interactions you observe from us when we're talking about us personally, from our ancestors, right? We meditate, we do ancestral veneration, and we observe our environments to find how the divine is communicating to us. And he in this book calls it omens. And so I guess I want to do a little fun thing, and let's give me three omens, each of you three omens. And if you want to talk a bit about them, that's good. But three omens that you saw that were profound in his walk in his first 42 pages.
I go. I don't know why this is coming to my head, but what I spoke about earlier, like him in that bar, about omens of who and who to trust and who not to trust. It just seemed like you know that was an omen for him about just trusting the first thing that came your way, instead of being patient and being he was in such a rush to get to where he was going. He didn't take time to um, get adjusted to the environment. He was, so to me that was an omen of like how who you should deal with and trust to guide you and take you on your path is not always the person who's looks and presents most comfortably to you. So um, that's one I can think of. Let me keep thinking. I'll go Alafia, Alafia, Alafia.
I'll go. I'm going to add to hers, but in a different perspective. Mine was him losing everything. Him losing everything and him thinking that the loss was a bad thing. But sometimes you have to lose everything to be, well, the law of physics. Two things can't occupy the same space. So sometimes you have to lose everything. And in losing everything, he had nothing to focus on and had to accept his environment. And him standing in the middle of the marketplace that next morning after he laid there cold, the night before, he woke up and he had peace. Because there's also something to be said about the ties that bind us, the things that we hold on to because we put value on them, also disable us because we're a slave to them. With nothing, he was open and free to the next part of what was supposed to unfold for him to move forward. But you can't do that while you're holding on, while you're holding on so hard to certain things. Oh, I love y'all. Yeah, that's it. I love you. I love you. I love you.
Thank you, thank you for that. Yes, yes. Like why did he lay down in that market? Like it was so self-loathing.
Listen, I would have done the same thing. I would. That's all. It was this. It was this. I'm done. That's all it was. I ain't got nothing. I
Take
throw
me
my hands
now.
up. I'm laying right here. That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. It was surrender.
Yeah.
That was surrender.
Yeah. Yeah. It was. It was. And that's how we get stagnant too, huh? We kind of surrender where we get stopped, and then we stop there for a while. Like he did, right? I'm going on, but he stayed there for a while. Okay, I'm gonna give you one that I found. And it's like it's one omen. It's one thing that happened that was two omens for me. Okay. So when he met that guy that spoke Spanish, and the guy was like going through the market with him, and in his mind, he's like, I'm gonna keep him close, right? But then he got distracted by this sword. Now, one that reminded me of the old wise man in his house, because he was looking at some treasure and forgot his oil, his money. Okay, and that ran off on him. But then when I was thinking about it, I was like, yeah, that's an omen. Like he should have, when he saw that treasure, he should have remembered to keep hold of his oil, to keep watch of his money. And he didn't, and it ran off, right? He got robbed. The second part of that sword was the description of that sword. He said the sword was silver and black, right? Silver and black. The handle was silver. The sword was silver, the handle was black. And then it had like precious stones all on the sword. And that was like, to me, it was like the mysterious it was okay, to me that was an omen. To me, that was like that bad thing that happened to him was that mysterious force, right? That perceived negativity. He got distracted, he got robbed. But the thing that he got distracted on was turned into an omen for him, right? When you think about the stones, didn't he receive stones? And whenever he was lost, he should have did a divination with those stones that were black and white. The sword was black and silver, had precious stones, and he had them stones in his pocket. But instead of paying attention to the omen, he surrendered and lay down in the market. To me, that was an omen like, go to the stones, go to the stones. Yeah, that sword. I mean, I was wondering, why are they describing this sword in such detail? Yeah. Okay. Um, One more omen was that when he arrived at the port, they said the port towns are full of thieves. And he didn't put his guard up. He trusted the first man he saw. He told him port towns are full of thieves. Man, those omens.
I go. Listen, he was so me. I am that person. I am that person. That would have been me. Now, no, it would have been me. Even when I was reading it, I tried to say, I would have made him give me my money back. But I know I wouldn't have. I like in that moment, I know I wouldn't have. It would have been me. And I see that in my everyday walk of life, you know. And I couldn't see it. All my friends could see it. All the people around me, they're like, "You're just too." They're like, they would say, "Neferisa, how can you be so intelligent and yet so naive and innocent at the same time? Like, how you just trust everybody, you just love everybody, You think everybody, you can see the good in everybody. You ignore all the other stuff. And I do. But then I had to remember what, again, something I learned in initiation, and it's one of the books, I think it's in the Initiatic Tales of Hedgetah. It talks about two brothers and I think two brothers are two best friends, and they go get honey, and the one's holding the honey, but the other one's stealing the honey from him. And then when it's his turn to carry the honey, he don't want him to carry it because he's like, oh, he's going to do the same to me. The thing of it is if that's not in your heart to do, you're not going to think that anybody else would do it. And that's my thing. I won't do these things to people. So I don't have any thought that they will do it to me. So there's the balance. The omen was, like you said, the thieves. Hey, you are in a place that's full of thieves. I don't care how much your good heart may have you. I mean, it showed the good-heartedness of him. He's a good dude. But no matter how good you are, you can't project your goodness on others. You have to be the example of that. You have to walk the way you have to walk. You got to stay on your square, but you have to be mindful of where you are and act accordingly. So yeah, that was a big, because you can't hold on and grow your gifts if you're steadily giving away and getting assaulted because of your goodness. So it's like, be good, but be mindful of where you are so you can adjust and not get ripped off. Whatever that rip off looks like, because you can turn a thief into your friend if you know how to walk in your goodness the proper way. The thief will not even steal from you if he'll end up giving you back all your stuff if you know how to walk the way you're supposed to walk. Because everything, when you're doing what you're supposed to do but can see, you're not getting duped, then they can't take from you. But if you're duped, you're duped. I mean, you can't do nothing about that. You're duped, you're duped. Allow me.
Yeah. Thank you, Neferista. That was pungent. That was really like strong because it reminded me of what you said in the beginning. I think I put in the text, you're the lake again. There you go, being the lake, right? You see, you see the goodness in you, in others. You project your goodness onto others, but maybe not necessarily seeing the actuality. Like the deities of the forest asked him, was he really that beautiful? What was his flaw? Basically, like, what did he have some flaws? Like, what was going on? Right? And we tend not to see that. Yeah, that's maybe that's why they put that story in the beginning, because there's so many times we act like the lake. Right? Or maybe sometimes we act like Narcissus because we really hadn't broke him down why he was needing to see himself. And I think somebody, was it Jennifer? I think somebody had said maybe it was the first time he had seen himself. And a lot of times when we go through our healing journeys, we don't see ourselves. Yeah, we don't really see ourselves. So that's interesting. That's pretty big. Okay. All right. I think I got through. I got through most of my points. Maybe like 2 or 3 of them left out, but we're out
Let me
of
take that.
time.
I want to give you a clap because that was excellent. Excellent. Yes.
It. Thank you to Aquavi. It's a good book, and I read it before, and I was like, oh, okay, I'll read it again, but it's coming from a totally different perspective. Totally different perspective. I think I read that book when I was in college or something like that, before I was really serious about, my journey. And it's just a totally different perspective. So I appreciate it. All right, who's next? Who's hosting next? Look at my notes. I hope they ready because I don't think they on the call. Premium workshops. Let's see. Who's next? Oh, I think I wrote it down in my book. Does anybody have who's hosting next?
Tiffany is hosting next from page
Okay.
43
All
to
right.
89. And Tiffany. Mm-hmm.
Okay. That'll be that.
Yes.
All right. I have a quick announcement. Of course, we're not having the workshops. This was the last Sunday, and I'm putting a note in the chat now, but this